Hey everybody, it's Rick Elkin. Are we having fun yet, kids? Hey, today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite reality shows on TV. It's called The Prophet, and if you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend it. I think it's one of the better of the breed of reality shows that are popular right now. And the star of the show is a guy named Marcus Lemonis, and I don't want to get into his whole history because it's pretty extensive. But bottom line is, he's a multimillionaire who is called upon to go in and help out struggling businesses. And in some cases, he literally ends up being a partner or even the owner of the business after he figures out how to solve their problems and save them from bankruptcy and in many cases turn them into raging successes. Obviously, not always. In fact, I've seen a couple of episodes where he's literally walked away after investing a lot of money and realizing this is a losing proposition. It's not going to happen, and maybe he can't get along with the owners or whatever it might be. He just folds his tent and walks away. But the reason I want to talk about him and that show is that a few months back, actually it was probably a little longer than that, but a while back I was really crushed when I heard one of his quotes. And it was right after the Charlottesville fiasco, the white supremacists demonstration and so forth that broke out in violence, and I think a young woman was killed, run over, and so far and so forth. And later on, President Trump made a comment that he thought there were good people on both sides, and that was highly criticized in the press, which I think pretty much mischaracterized what he was trying to say. But nevertheless, Marcus Lemonis was credited with saying, anyone who agrees with the comments about Charlottesville by Donald Trump can just not do business in my stores. And I thought, wow, that just doesn't seem like him. And I don't know why he's venturing off into politics. But I have to say, it didn't go over well with me. And I think that's partly because my view of what he was saying and maybe his view of what he was saying are completely different. But it sounded like he was taking a shot at Trump, and I think especially when you're dealing with something as uh, iffy as that rally, which there were a lot of people there. They probably shouldn't have been there, and there was both sides of the political spectrum, and there were black activists and white supremacists and everybody in between, and it broke out into a big mess. And I thought what Trump was trying to say was that, there's good people on both sides of this national debate, not necessarily at that place at that time. But, that's the way the press framed it. And they made it sound like he was endorsing the violence and or at least making light of the violent white supremacists, and particularly the one who drove down and ran over uh, some woman that was there. So, at any rate, I guess my real challenge here is that I thought he was out. I thought Marcus Lemonis was out of line by essentially dismissing half the population, or at least making it sound like "F you, Trump supporters. Don't bother coming to any of my businesses." And I really thought Trump was simply trying to tamp down the heated rhetoric. But later on, to his credit, Marcus Lemonis apologized. He wrote a long letter saying, that maybe he was out of line, that he was a little bit emotional, and that he probably should have thought about what he was saying a little bit more before he did that. And I accept him at his word. But I do have a different take on this whole thing because, interestingly enough, the way I see his show is that he's kind of doing on his show what I think Donald Trump is trying to do for America. He's going in there and tackling the people, the process, and the product, and trying to get them in the right order and the right mix and make things work better. And I think he's found that as you go through this, like he does with businesses, Trump is running into issues with relationships. And I'm willing to bet you that even Marcus Lemonis will tell you that most of the business he goes into, most of the people in there don't all agree about what it will take to fix the business. And he just happens to have an incredible talent at sorting that out, sitting down with the principals, showing them their options, and making them realize that it's in their best interests if they can work together to fix this. And, and isn't that exactly what Donald Trump is trying to do? I think I've watched every episode of The Prophet, and I just don't remember any of them where everybody agreed on what the solution was. And I think that's pretty much the case we have with the country and the politicians in Washington, and all of the special interests that are involved. Um, I think this is something that he misses when he essentially stereotyped red state voters or Trump supporters as people who would support hatred and bigotry, and I don't think that's the case at all. So anyway, I think one thing that Marcus Lemonis needs to realize is that the president has been put into a completely different kind of business environment than what he walks into. The rules of business really don't apply in Washington. There really aren't any rules. There's no timelines. There's budgets that nobody really keeps. There's little or no accountability. All these kind of things that you normally see in a business environment don't exist in Washington. And President Trump's got to deal with special interest groups and political forces that wield enormous power. It's not the same as sitting down with mom and pop and trying to sort out their balance sheets. So, I think in many cases Trump's task is like herding cats, but it may also be like herding dinosaurs. And he's been tasked with fixing maybe the largest and most complex business in the history of mankind. And I don't know that that's something that Lemonis could do. And I'm not sure yet that Trump can do it either, but I think they need to respect each other for what they do attempt to do and recognize that they're operating in two completely different worlds. That's it for me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.